Greetings, I'm Karen Colligan, and welcome to the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. So, why do I care about leadership? As a founder of PeopleThink, and in my tenure as a leader, as a consultant, and as a coach, I've certainly seen my share of very good leaders and my share of very bad leaders. And I thought it'd be great to share the wisdom from the very good leaders. Hence, the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. You're going to hear from a variety of leaders who are in a variety of roles, sharing their leadership expertise by answering the same 6 questions. Every single leader is unique in their style and approach, and we want to capture that uniqueness and provide you, the listener, with a diverse way of looking at leadership. So let's get moving and talk to our next leadership guest. In this episode, I am thrilled to be speaking to Dr. Carrie Graham, who is CEO and a learning strategist. And we're going to hear all about Carrie's approach to leadership. So Carrie, welcome and thank you for being with us today.
Oh, Karen, thank you so much for having me. I am excited to talk with you today about leadership.
Love that. Love that. East Coast rocks.
That's right.
Okay, so Carrie, before we get going and we even start talking about leadership at all, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and give us a snapshot of your current role?
Yeah, well, thank you for the invitation. And in all seriousness, I am honored to be here with you and your audience. I have a background in training and development across multiple industries, but primarily business and higher education. And my current work is working to improve the experience of employee learning.
So what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, yep. So my focus is by improving employee learning experiences. I focus on engagement. So really getting program developers to understand how to engage people in learning. And then we go from that and we strategically build learning concepts. And then we take it one step further by moving the needle with skills application. How do we actually get people to do the thing that we're training them to do?
Yes, and I think, that's the hardest thing because in the moment of training, we know, Carrie, that people are excited and we're going to use it. And we
Mm,
also know past behavior predicts future behavior. And within
absolutely.
2 weeks, oftentimes the learning evaporates a little bit because they
Yep.
get back into the world. And so
Yeah.
being able to apply those skills is, I'll just say it here, it's like a duh
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the approach that I take is I always start with the engagement piece and it goes deeper than that, but always with we got to get them engaged because once they are motivated and engaged and motivated, they're going to learn, right? And have a deep understanding and remember, and we apply what we remember. And
Yes.
that's the critical part is helping them remember, understand, remember so that they can apply things appropriately, whether it's decision making processes or skills, whatever the case may be. And to your point, it's so often that the training information or skills dilute over time. I argue and research shows that if you shift the way you develop your programming and the training itself, there's things that you can do to solidify and extend the time that they retain the information so that they're applying it for the long term.
Nice. Wow, fascinating.
Mhm.
Can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Carrie. Appreciate that. Yeah,
Yes.
good. Now we know a little bit about Dr. Carrie Graham. Let's get into our first question. And it's always my
Ooh.
first question. It's about how do you define leadership? And you are my number 39 podcast, Carrie, and every single person before you, all 38, have defined it differently. So let's see, how do you define leadership?
Right. And I love that. I agree wholeheartedly that leadership has It's about behavior. First and foremost, leadership is not a title.
Mhm.
It is about your behavior. First and foremost. So how we all look at how my 38 predecessors, how we all look at behavior, it absolutely will shift. So that's the basic definition for me, is it's behavior, not a role and position. But when I think about leadership and my role as leadership, it's really focusing on the individual.
Mm.
Do you understand the people that you are working with and that you are now going to ask them to do a thing,
Mhm.
right? Am I going to ask Karen, I need you to go to the front line of battle. There are certain things about you that I need to understand before I can make that request. I put the followers, the team, whomever it is that individuals want to have influence toward, you got to understand them. You
Mhm.
have to, as an effective leader, you have to understand them.
Right. And you said some two things that I just want to reiterate. First of all, understand them as individuals because that's what
Yes.
every single person is. And that's part of why I do the leadership podcast because every leader is unique and really an individual. And the second thing I want to reiterate is you said, "Will I go into battle for you?" And you know what? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. It's based on, do you understand me and do I trust you?
And that's the thing.
That is absolutely the thing. And I have had leaders, anything they said I would have done. And I have other leaders, oh, not a chance. Not a chance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so like I draw that definition and that perspective of leadership from a humanistic approach when it comes to adult learning theory. And the humanistic approach focuses on what are the needs of the individual and how can I support them in being their full self.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so if I truly understand who you are, Karen, and I've supported you in your own development to be your full self as, a frontline worker, and then we have a level of trust there, I should have confidence that I can make the request of you and also have confidence that you will follow suit. You may have questions, which
Yeah.
is fine,
Yeah.
but you will follow suit ultimately. So,
Yeah.
and that's why I say like effective leaders truly they understand the people.
Mhm. Yeah, I spoke with someone recently about leadership, obviously, and it's so similar in what you're saying. And her words was, "You have to care
Yeah.
about the individual, and you can't care about the individual until what you just said, Carrie. You
Mhm.
have to know them first." So
Yep.
I love that. Good,
Yep.
thank you. All
Yeah.
right. So my second question is all about values. And values to me are our foundation about how we make decisions. Values for me are when I know I'm in a tough spot and the decision is a hard decision to make. If I can fall back on my values, then I know I will make the right decision based on my foundation. And then
Hmm.
I can sleep at night. And
Hmm.
so I really believe that leaders have to really be crystal clear about their values so that when the tough gets tougher, or however that saying goes,
Yeah.
basically they can make a hard decision. So tell us
Yeah.
about your three top values.
I would say first and foremost, giving a nod to my childhood, the golden rule: treat
Mm.
others the way you want to be treated. I've been in situations where I was not the leader and wasn't, that it didn't stick. And it
Yeah.
has left an impression, a negative impression on me.
Yes. Yeah.
So, we teach children you treat others the way you want to be treated. And it really has stuck with me. So I would say that's the first one. The second one is my faith in Christ.
Mm.
And so I work really hard on my faith and using my faith and belief in God as a guiding principle in
Mhm.
all decisions that I make, even if it's I have to give someone some really difficult information, right? Like, we're going to have to let you go. It's just the information, but do I do it in a way that focuses on the bottom line and the corporate structure? Or do I do it in a way that my God would want me to, which is with love and compassion and empathy? And so that's my faith is another value that guides me. And then the last thing that guides me, and I am so thankful that I have come to this, is I have to remind myself this is all part of learning. This is a journey. If you do your best in this moment and it's the wrong decision or it doesn't come across the right way, you can take a sigh in knowing that you were doing the best that you could with what you had, but yet there's also an opportunity to either apologize for that or make the correction in the future. When I got to that point in my leadership journey and just in my journey in general, that's when I started sleeping deeper at night and, making difficult decisions with and for other people. It wasn't I didn't dread it as much. I recognized it was something that had to be done, and I could move through it more confidently as opposed to, putting things off.
Yes. And so you're right. I mean, it's a journey and we all make mistakes, and it doesn't matter what age we are, we're always going to make mistakes. It's the
Right.
learning from it. And the other part, that I heard that you didn't say, and I know is in there, is you also, Carrie, have to be kind to yourself. And
Yes.
and then you can sleep at night thinking, okay, I did the best I could. I didn't do, I made a mistake.
Right.
Okay, Karen, Carrie, it's okay. I'll make other mistakes. What did I learn from it? So to be kind to
Absolutely.
yourself that it's not the end of the world. The sun is still going to rise and the sun is
Yeah.
going to set. Exactly.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have found myself in some situations as a leader that I mean, even to this day, I don't ever want to be in those situations again. I made a mistake. It didn't come up until 9 months later. And I apologize humbly to the individual.
Mhm.
I said, I'm going to do everything that I can to rectify my mistake. And even though, I had some level of anxiety at night, I was still able to, sleep and know that I did make a mistake. I acknowledged it, and now I'm going to do everything in my power to fix it. And the individual fully understood, accepted my apology, and I was able to rectify it.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it comes from a place you just said love, compassion, and empathy. When it comes from that, I mean, how can people not accept an apology?
Right. Right.
Exactly. All righty then. So, question number 3. What's
Yeah.
the best advice you were ever given by a leader?
Oh, Karen, I have to say a piece of advice that there's two things. One, I want to tell you about one story, but I hear my mother's voice in my head, right? So I'm going to say again a nod to my childhood, and she, was my leader.
Uh-huh.
Very do your best. Like, do your best. It
Mhm.
wasn't a qualifier of do your best and do your best because, but rather do your best.
Uh-huh.
Just do your best. So that's the first incredible piece of advice that I've gotten from a leader that I it has always stuck with me, whether I remembered it or not. It was there. And
Mhm.
then the other piece of advice that I got, and it was more feedback, but it has made its way back in my life over the years. As a college student, someone said, "You don't show initiative."
Oh.
And it was crushing to me as an incredibly shy individual,
Mm.
it was crushing. It
Yes.
wasn't received well. I will gladly I will admit that it was not received well. And over the years, I had struggled with it, but at this stage in my life, as I've stepped into leadership roles, it's important. You have to, as the leader, you have to show the initiative. You have to make that first step for people. You have to lead the way.
Mm.
Because if you don't do it, how can they trust you? How can they trust
Yeah.
the process? You have to show the initiative, even if it's in risk taking,
Mhm.
being creative, being addressing conflict, whatever it is. As the leader, you have to show the initiative.
Yes, absolutely. And that piece that it builds trust, which then goes back to your value of treat people as you would like to be treated. I mean, it's all like this big circle. And what's great listening to you, Carrie, is the fact that, well, moms rock. I mean, my mom is in my head all of the time. And there are days I'm like, leave me alone. Mom,
Right,
stop. So
right.
the leader, like,
It's funny,
okay.
Karen, it's funny you say that. My mom, thankfully, is still with me and she's retired. And so here I am working. I don't even know what she's doing. Like, she's living that retired life. But here she is. She's popping up in my work related conversation.
Yeah,
They are the epitome of just great leaders. Even
oh,
with their faults, they are great leaders.
absolutely. My mom is no longer with us and she's still in my head. So it doesn't matter.
It doesn't go away.
I know she's in this room with me. I almost feel her in here. Yeah, no question about that. Anyway, love that. All right, number four. The world is a little upside down.
Yeah.
We're going through a lot of change, I would say, a lot of transition. So, as a leader, how do you lead through transition and change? Because what we know is change doesn't matter always. You walk
Yeah.
into an organization, there's an org chart. When I was in my first corporate job, they said, do not get used to this org chart because it will change on a regular basis. At first, I didn't understand what that meant, Carrie. And then now, 9 months later, I was like, oh. And then, 12 months later, I was like, oh, now I get it. So change,
Right.
there's no control over, but how do you lead through it?
I lead with compassion.
Mm,
I really do. It's not always easy. I know I would be lying if I said, "Oh, sure, to lead with compassion, it's through change and through transition, it's easy," but there's some other approaches. But I have found that when I lead with compassion, it's it centers the individuals. How can I ensure, like, what are their needs? What is their level of anxiety or stress related to this change? How can I help them address that anxiety and stress to calm it or remove it, whatever it is that they need? And then what types of support can I give them that they can then use as a resource to navigate through the transition?
mm,
Every person is different. And
indeed.
so to offer, I do not believe in a one size fits all approach. And it may require more effort from an emotional intelligence perspective, from an intellectual perspective, from a time management perspective. It may take more of me as a leader. However, I have assumed that leadership role. And if I want my group or my team to effectively move through challenges, transition, chaos, I believe it is the number one thing for me to do is to use compassion, identify their needs, support them in addressing their needs, and then give them the resources to move through it.
Yeah, and what that is it goes directly back Carrie, to what you said about your definition of leadership is you have to understand the individual. So when you are using your compassion, it will be a different level of
Yeah.
compassion based on the need,
Yep.
because you understand who the individual is. And that's a big deal, because people handle transition and change much differently. Some people love it, some people don't. And
Yeah.
so it's really a one-to-one type of response.
I had shared that with someone before, and they commented how emotionally taxing that was. And my response was, it's actually not, solely because each person is different.
Yeah.
So one person may appear stressed, and really they just don't have enough information.
Yeah.
And so if I just provide them with the information, they're fine. There are others who they have some complex, deep rooted emotions that this situation is bringing up for them. And so, in that regard, if I understand that, I can have a conversation with them to help them compartmentalize what is real, what is attached to your past, and let's keep them where they belong. Let's not mix them. And those individuals are like, oh, okay, then like, I recognize what's happening here. I can go.
Yes.
So it's because everyone is different. They have different needs. You're not depleting yourself of one particular resource. I don't believe.
Yeah, and you said it. One size does not fit all. No question.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Alrighty. So the best leaders, of course, are curious and they're always learning.
Yeah,
Just end of the day, that's what we have to
always.
do. So what do you do in terms of continuing to make sure that you're growing? I mean, what you do for a living obviously is just sings to that. And individually, Carrie, what do you do? How do you grow? How do you learn? How do you develop?
Yeah, I have always been inquisitive, always.
Mhm.
And now I've learned how to channel that in a way that supports my growth and development. So what I mean by that is my desk sits in front of a window in my house, and there's a tree, a developing tree right in front of me. And on those days when I am stressed and I need to grow in my stress management skills, right? I look at the tree and I just start to wonder, like, what kind of birds are those? Why is the leaves on this tree changing but not on the tree across the street, right? So I look to things around me that are totally unrelated,
Mhm.
but that it grounds me ultimately and gives me space to wonder and be curious while it calms me.
Mm.
When it comes to the work that I do, adult learning work, workplace learning work, I always go to the research.
Mhm.
So I look at um, scholarly journals. I follow, I read different articles from a methods perspective, from a findings perspective, like just from different perspectives. There are things that I look at and read. I really approach the world with curiosity in all things. And my husband says we've been married for just a couple years, and I remember one day we were watching something, and it prompted me to be curious because it was making me think about my work. I said, "Why do you think this is? Why is this happening? Why?" I just kept saying why, and he finally shifted his body to face me and said, "Carrie, who cares? Like, why why do you need an answer? Why does it have to be explained? Why can't we just watch this?" And I would, and so then it becomes a learning experience, right? So then I shift my body to him, and I'm like, why don't you care? Right? Like, why don't you want to learn about, like, understanding why this is happening? And so even in that, it
There's some adult learning,
it
isn't it?
was, it was, right? So in that moment, I recognize, right? People are motivated. It was a reminder, I should
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
that people are motivated to learn different
Yes.
things for
Yes.
different reasons.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Like we can all just sit and watch whatever
Yeah.
for whatever level of motivation we have.
Yes, exactly. And there's something about putting the mind at rest
Yes.
so
Yes.
that other things can come in. And
Yes.
you looking at a tree and thinking, what about that leaf? How come? And then all of a sudden, the work stuff gets put somewhere else so that there's other space in your brain to have new thoughts, new
Yeah.
ideas, more inspiration come in. I
Yeah.
always find I'm really, really, really smart when I am on my walk in Central Park. I used to be a runner, and that was when I was really smart as well. And now I can't because of a bad foot. And I still go out at least 4 times a week. And I am so smart. And then I bring my phone so that I can write down my ideas. I'm like, I wouldn't have thought of that in my
Yes.
office if I sat there all day. I wouldn't have
All
thought
day.
of that. Yes.
All day. I agree. I've had some great ideas come to me on my morning walks. I love driving, like
Mhm.
just long stretches of time, and I I haven't done it in a while now that I'm married. Like he just likes to drive. But I would get some incredible insights and ideas driving with no music. I would either, if the weather was nice, windows down, sunroof open, if it's cold, just
Yeah.
just silence.
Yeah.
For me, it does that. It provides that rest for
Yeah.
my brain. And sometimes I'll be in a meeting and I'm, a pretty stressful meeting, and people will say, "Well, what are you thinking about?" And Karen, the reality is I'm not thinking about anything, right? Like my brain needs to shut down. So my body has learned how to be attentive, but my brain needs rest.
Yeah.
And because we work, sometimes in the middle of the day we don't have an opportunity to escape and do that, but rather for me it's this tree and these birds that really give me rest.
Carrie, the brain needs to rest.
Yes.
They know more perfection. Perfection.
Yes.
All righty. So our last question.
Mhm.
Piece of art or music or literature or whatever else keeps you balanced and brings you joy. And of course, joy is the operative word here because we have to be a full human being if we're going to be productive during the day. So tell us about your joy.
Yeah, my joy, it comes from the inside. Again, this tree has helped me find joy and recognize that the joy is within me.
Ah,
So when my brain has an opportunity to rest, I'm reminded there's just joy around me. It's my responsibility to see it and to claim it and to cherish it and to share it. So I have joy. I have joy. So there's like just being for me, like reflecting and being causes me joy. But when I think about the things or individuals that help me remind me of the joy that I have, it's my loved ones,
mm,
my blood related family, my chosen family, looking at pictures of them, spending time with them, hearing their voices, that brings me joy. And it brings me joy because it brings me peace. It brings me rest. I
mm,
can be my full ridiculous self and
mhm.
they still love me. And so there's right, so there's a level of resting in that. And when I rest in that, the joy just bubbles over. So it's spending time with loved ones. And the third thing I would say that actually brings me joy, it's what honestly, it is a guilty pleasure, Karen, and it's to watch nonsense television.
Wonderful. Yes.
Yeah, it years ago, years ago, when they still showed cartoons, I would just watch, like, I would literally lay on the couch after work and I would just watch cartoons for like an hour
Yeah.
because it was literally my brain needed to rest.
Yes.
Um, but I watch, like, I'll watch a series over and over and over again. And my husband, he's like, how can you look at that? I'm like, I know what they're gonna say.
Exactly.
It's entertaining
Yeah.
and my brain can rest.
Right.
And so, yeah, a lot of nonsense,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
nonsense TV.
I
Yeah.
worked with a woman and she was always so proud that she said, we don't have a TV at home. And I was always like, why? And she said, well, we can get the news or whatever we need, from our computer. And I'd be like, okay, why? It was one of those things. And we would have this conversation. She'd be like, what do you watch? I'm like, and when I'd give her the list, she was horrified. She's like, okay. Said, I'm
Yeah.
not learning one thing. I'm not learning
No,
one thing. No,
no, no, that's
fine
not
with
the
that.
purpose. That is
That's
not the
no,
purpose.
no purpose here. No purpose
Right, right.
here.
That's not the purpose. And I am not gonna offer up the things that I watch that are nonsense. Just know that it is nonsense
Nonsense.
TV. Yeah.
Notice I didn't ask you for
And
the
I
title,
appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
nor did I reveal mine.
Right, right, right.
Oh, goodness gracious. Carrie, thank you. Thank you so much for your wisdom, for your insights, for being so open to talk about leadership. I just get so inspired after these to listen to people and how, those 6 questions they're just so personal. So I love it. And I'm so grateful to you. So thank you.
Oh, Karen, thank you. Thank you for the invitation, the time, the space. And I say that from the perspective of the time and space to reflect on what is important to me, what matters to me. And my prayer is that it connects with your listeners and that it either guides them or it supports them by like affirming what they already believe, because as you've said, leadership is so different per person. There are effective ways and ineffective ways. um, but it has really been an honor. It's been an honor to spend the time with you, and also to listen to some of the other episodes has also been inspiring and informative as well. So thank you for the work that you do. It is incredible.
Yeah, one hand washes the other, right, Carrie?
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes. But I just want to leave a final thought, Karen. Having a talk with you has been all the joy.
All right, I'm getting people to say talk. That's what yeah, I love that. Yes, enjoy. And you know what? We fun conversation, laugh. What better way to spend an hour, right?
Absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
joy. It's joy for me. I mean, how do I get joy? I do a podcast called Let's Talk Leadership. That's where I get my joy from, in case any of the listeners care.
Right. I love it. I love it.
So anyway, everybody, thanks for listening. And I'm Karen Colligan, and you've been listening to Dr. Carrie Graham, who is the CEO and a learning strategist. If this leadership podcast was of interest to you, go to our YouTube channel, People Think SF, and look at all the other distinguished leaders I've had the pleasure of interviewing. You're going to learn so much about the uniqueness of leadership. I know I have. And don't forget to share with your colleagues. Till the next episode of the Let's Talk Leadership podcast, have a good one. And don't forget to keep it real. Editing by Mary Lee Williams.